Welcome to the fourth video in our series on cost volume profit analysis. In this video, we will wrap up our CVP series by looking at the degree of operating leverage. So what are our learning objectives for this video? First, we want to understand what the degree of operating leverage is and what it measures. Next, we want to be able to calculate a company's degree of operating leverage. And finally, we want to be able to interpret the degree of operating leverage. So what is the degree of operating leverage? It is a measure of risk and shows us how sensitive profits are to changes in sales. The degree of operating leverage helps us to determine how the earnings level will change based on a change in our sales. The greater the degree of operating leverage, the more a change of sales, either up or down, will affect the profit we earn. The degree of operating leverage is dependent on the proportion of fixed and variable costs within the cost structure. A company which operates more automated systems is likely to have higher fixed costs and lower variable costs, while a company which operates more manual systems is likely to have lower fixed costs and higher variable costs. We will use an example at the end of this video to see how the cost structure impacts the operating leverage. How do we then calculate the degree of operating leverage? It is simply the contribution margin divided by the profit. Notice here that the contribution margin is sales less all variable costs, and therefore accounts for the proportion of variable costs in the cost structure. The profit is then the contribution less fixed costs, and therefore accounts for the proportion of fixed costs in the cost structure. Importantly here, the profit used is normally the earnings before interest and tax, or EBIT. We use the EBIT to remove the effects of the financing structure, which is the degree of financial leverage, as well as the tax structure. How then do we interpret the degree of operating leverage? Remember, the degree of operating leverage is a measure of risk. The higher the degree of operating leverage, the greater the risk of the company. Risk, however, is not necessarily a bad thing. A company with a higher operating leverage will benefit more when there's an increase in sales, i.e., it will have higher profits. But it will also stand to lose more if there's a decrease in sales. Now let's look at a small example to make sure we can calculate and interpret the degree of operating leverage. Here we have two companies that make equal sales and profits. However, the company's cost structures are completely different. Company A has more variable costs and lower fixed costs, while Company B has more fixed costs and fewer variable costs. If we now calculate the degree of operating leverage, we see that Company A is the contribution of 1.6 million Rand divided by the profit of 1 million Rand to get 1.6, while Company B is the contribution of 2.4 million Rand divided by the profit of 1 million Rand to get 2.4. This means that Company B is a more risky company, but has the potential for greater returns and also greater losses. We can see this if we hypothetically increase sales by 25%. If we increase sales by 25% in both companies, our new sales units would be 5,000 units. At 1,000 Rand per unit, this would give us total sales of 5 million Rand. Our variable costs for Company A would then increase to 3 million Rand, while for Company B they would increase to 2 million Rand. Our fixed costs would remain unchanged because they do not depend on the number of units produced and sold. This means that our new profit would be 1.4 million Rand for Company A and 1.6 million Rand for Company B. Company B has seen a greater increase in profit compared to Company A due to its higher operating leverage. From this, we can see that, all things being equal, a company with a greater proportion of fixed costs is more risky than a company with a greater proportion of variable costs. Another interesting observation we can make here is that Company A's profit increased by 40%, while Company B's profit increased by 60%. If we take our degree of operating leverage for each company, which remember was 1.6 for A and 2.4 for B, and multiply it by the change in sales, which was 25% for both companies, we arrive at the percentage change in profit of 40% for Company A and 60% for Company B. This brings us to the end of our series on cost volume profit analysis. Make sure to join us for our other series. Thank you.